That first drink made me sneeze.
Welcome.
Hi.
The show.
What's up?
That was weird.
That sounded like
a sneeze.
Dude, that
This-
Bless you.
This can feels unreasonably pressurized, and I am anxious to open it.
Ooh, mine does too.
Did your first one?
Ooh.
Did you notice?
What was that? Ooh, some root beer.
AEW.
Yeah, we did root beer floats.
Root
And
Caffeine free.
So I forgot to ask you about
Had a
this
lot
brand.
left over.
Are they? Is this their own? Is this new? Is this their own thing?
Bro, I don't
or are they
know.
owned by somebody? Do you know?
somebody texted me, was like, hey, they have this. And I was like, dude, new? We'll try.
You have to sneeze.
So today what Phil is
Yeah, drink.
hinting at, we thought it was kind of appropriate for the last, bless you. Bless you.
Again.
That first drink made me sneeze. Excuse me. That was weird.
Weird.
Go ahead.
But yeah, it's called Gorilla Mind. It looks pretty cool. It's got a gorilla's face. It's kind of cool. It's a new. I'd never heard of it before.
I like that they have all of the noteworthy ingredients listed in big block numbers and stuff on the side.
Yeah.
And so it's not in the tiny little nutrition facts thing.
Right.
It's kind of dope.
We'll see.
easy to
Mine's
see what's going on.
bombsicle.
I've got black cherry vanilla. I'm
right.
excited for this.
You do yours.
This is right next to my face. I'm scared.
Not bad.
Ah.
You got a 2-for-1 on that one. Oh, my buddy
Oh, that's good.
TBK has been saying that a lot.
Oh my gosh, that's good. This is my new favorite energy drink, and it is not close. Immediately.
It's in the okay.
Waterfall that.
Oh,
No.
I will buy my own someday because I will probably go through all these.
Oh my gosh,
It's
that's so good.
kind of, it reminds me of like the flavor intensity, kind of like Ghost, but the realness of flavor.
I was going to say, it's a more pure flavor than what
It's
Ghost
like if you
typically
took
is.
C4 and combined it with Ghost and just they had a baby and it was Gorilla Mind.
Are we going to do the who hot thing again?
You know?
No, not that one.
Oh, I don't know.
No, remember at Salt the one year we were trying to explain to Bryson
Oh, what?
because he'd never had who hot before.
Yeah, shout out Bryson. Yeah, we
That was the funniest freaking thing ever.
just give listeners an idea. We had one of my former students, now a friend of ours. We were taking him, and he had never had hoo hot before. If you haven't had hoo hot, it's a Mongolian grill,
And it's fine.
It's good.
It's okay.
It's good. Yeah, I mean it's good because you make it your
It's
your
good,
own.
but it's
I love
not
it. If you
incredible.
got high protein needs, it's great because you can just destroy protein. Just load it up.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were driving to it and we were just like making up. I don't even know what you would call it.
He
but
wanted
just-
to know what it was going to be like.
We were just,
like,
just way overhyping it, hyping it up like it was the next best thing, like the greatest thing we had
If
ever
an
had.
angel cried into your
Yeah,
stoop or whatever.
it's
don't
like
know.
if every time you took a bite, Jesus was standing behind you singing praises of the food you were about ready to eat. That's what it tasted like. Things like that.
That's who hot.
Just over. That's
was
hoo-ha.
stupid. It was so
like,
stupid.
Think of the worst food you've ever had in your entire life. It's the exact opposite of that. That's hoo hot. Like that kind of thing. And it took us like 20 minutes to drive there and we hyped it the whole 20 minutes. Just way overhyped it. We get to the hoo hot and it was the worst hoo hot we had ever been to. So not only is it's hoo hot's all right.
It would have been disappointing for people who knew that hoo hot
even
was
if because
decent.
exactly. Like I love hoo hot and I was disappointed. You know, that kind of a place. It was not a good hoo hot. And he left there and he was like, was this supposed to be like that? This hoo hot was the only place where I have ever not tipped before.
It could
Oh
have.
my gosh.
And
It
it
is-
could.
I've
Not even
only,
because the quality of the food, but the waitress.
the waitress.
It was
It was
terrible.
bad.
It
It
was
was
bad.
so bad. I have never been treated so poorly at a
And
restaurant. It was bad.
It's poor guy because the best hoo hot in the world could never have lived up to that.
No, he was going to be disappointed no matter what.
Yeah, if the best grill chefs in the world, if the best hibachi chefs in the world had worked at that hoo hot, all of them, it could have never lived
Not a
up
chance.
to the
Not a chance.
expectation.
It's not possible. We purposefully way overhyped it. Just just to
We
troll
ruined it
him.
for him before we ever got there.
And it just happened to be the worst
And
established.
then the waitress like
Oh, it
straight
was
up
so
bullied
bad.
him.
Yeah,
too.
he was like
some
trying to pay,
reason.
and she looked at him and was like, "Excuse me, I will take one check at a time." And then she proceeded to take one person's check and bill up to the cashier, run it, and then take like 10 minutes to get back. And we were kind of on a little bit of a deadline, so we
Yeah.
needed to be back by like 7. And I feel like we stopped eating at 6 and we still were late getting back. And it was like a
Yeah.
20-minute drive. It took that lady like 40 minutes to check us out. And then she treated you really crappy because you
Because-
actually ordered something rather than doing the...
No, I didn't order much. I ordered like a side of like spring rolls or something
Yeah,
because
instead
I
of
couldn't
the
do
all
the
you can
full
eat.
thing.
Yeah.
Because I was dealing with Crohn's symptoms and I had been sick off that place enough
Yeah,
times.
that's right.
That I was just like, I'm not going to do it. But yeah, she
shit,
gave
I
me
think
so
a
much
couple people
attitude and
ordered
side eye because I
dessert, too.
didn't.
And she was mad about that.
Yeah, she's mad. And it was like, this is all tip money, dude. Like, the more the more
It's like
food
we're
we
like
order.
a table of like 20 people.
Dude, and
Like you could be smarter than this.
well, and like just recently, maybe even like the week before that, I had been kind of grilling our students because my thought process on tipping is it's an opportunity to bless somebody. So
Yeah.
tip
Yep.
tip generously.
Yep.
And if you mention God's name, if you mention Jesus, like it is now your responsibility to tip above and beyond, because in the tipping industry, the restaurant industry, Christians who go to eat after church are notoriously known for tipping poorly. If that's you, shame on you. Like that is a horrible representation of Jesus. We were supposed to be generous. And so I just got done kind of like preaching that and all this. And then and I'm like, do not tip. And I was like, Bryson, you do not put a tip down. If anybody, like everybody else can tip, that's fine. But you do not tip. The way she treated you, do not tip. He still tipped her. Because again, I just been preaching about how we just be generous. And
like,
Bryson
is
even
this
told
a
me,
test?
yeah, Bryson was like, I didn't know what to do. And I was like, not tip. And he's like, but I wanted to bless her even though she didn't deserve it. And I was like, right in my heart.
There you go.
Yeah.
Conviction.
And then the rest of that trip was mermaids and
yeah, we
my
shared that story
gosh.
on here a few like early
I
episode.
forgot about that. We did
Yeah.
talk about that, didn't we? Yeah.
The sensual
sexual
mermaids. Same guy.
That was a good trip.
That
That was a fun
Oh,
one.
and then
That
the
was a fun one.
Beyonce, and they basically redid the
Oh,
SNL
yeah,
skit
dude.
with Beyonce. Single
Oh, the
ladies.
single ladies. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still known
We
for
Are
that.
the
That was
Dancers.
10 years ago.
Anytime I hear
10
that
years
song now, that's the only thing I can see. There is
You think
nothing
of
else.
Bryson's butt.
Yes, I see
Wow.
that big old
It's
O
hard
line.
not to think of
that
it.
big old O line booty.
But just up
swinging
on the
around.
stage, and
I
this
seem
is
to
a
manage
Christian
just
conference.
Fine not thinking
Oh
about
my
that.
gosh.
Can't even
I
picture
can't.
it.
I
So-
can't not think
I
about it.
can't
Every
not.
single time that song comes on, we'll be at the
Oh,
gym
my
and I
gosh.
just stop and I'm just like, dang it.
Anytime, so like even to this day, I can mention, be like, oh yeah, one of my former students, like we had last summer, we had gone down for his wedding, and I was like, yeah, I'm going down to a former student, and they're like, oh, that far for a former student? And I was like, had you ever met Bryson? And they're like, it sounds familiar. And I was like, he's the dude who danced the single ladies. And they're like, oh yeah, Big Daddy, yeah,
he
that guy.
introduced himself as Big Daddy.
And everybody is like, he is enthroned
Yep.
in the Great Plains South Chi Alpha
Yeah.
because of that.
Bryson, if you hear this, I miss you, bro.
I hope he hears this. I think he's in the Discord now.
Yes.
Nice.
I think he's actually talking in the Discord now. Like I think
Cool.
I
That's
think I
better
saw
than
him
me.
mentioning. I know you don't talk like at all.
I'm terrible about it. Why?
You're just
Oh, I thought you were
terrible.
talking to me. No, I don't even.
Well, I don't
hate
expect it
phasing-
from you.
Expect-
I hate
even less
phasing
from
into
me,
and out of
guys.
conversations.
I love it.
I hate phasing in and out because I feel like I miss stuff and then I misspeak, and so like I can't catch up with everything.
No, not
And
a
so
chance.
Same here.
I have like the what do you call that, the panic mode where like you can't do anything because what is that called?
Overwhelmed and
Well,
just
there's a
decision fatigue.
sure that's
like
not
the
the
same
one,
thing.
but it's quit looking at me like
Like you just get
Okay,
paralyzed
boomer.
because there's so much.
indecisiveness because there's
Yeah.
there's a
input indecision or something like that. Yeah, I don't know what the term you're thinking of is.
It's
but
because we have made ourselves so accessible, and
I hate being accessible.
me too, especially
Yeah.
I
lately.
hate it.
Yep.
Sometimes I purposely ignore a call that I'm expecting just so that I'm inaccessible for like 5 seconds, and then I call
Well,
them
I
back. It's a
get
power move.
the best excuse to be inaccessible for the next few months. So
Yeah, because you have a baby.
I'm officially full term tomorrow, and then so my comments and my involvement is just gonna take a dive off a cliff for a while. And
It's all right.
I'm fully ready for
We'll get
it.
Mike on here and he'll hypnotize me.
Except I still want to get my short story out there, but
Yeah, for real. Your short story, it's gonna be releasing soon, right?
Did you
Yes,
make
I have
like
a
this
few-
Before the baby comes.
I have a few quirks to work
the
out.
baby's
Like
coming
I
in,
thought
like,
I had
3
the
weeks.
process figured out of like which
publishing?
Yeah, like which distribution place to use and stuff, and then wouldn't you know it, copyright stuff, and like, is it worth it? And there's just a whole lot of little decisions that spring up in the middle of it. But my manuscript is complete, guys. Tanner has read it. Phil has read it.
It's amazing.
I think Phil
I
is
enjoyed it
starting
a lot.
to write now too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't touched it in a couple days, but I finished up, went to work, and started banging out a story of my own.
That's
I was
my
like,
encouragement.
That
'cause
was fun.
I have so many people who come up to me and they're like, "I didn't know that you wrote. Like, I've had this story in me for forever." And I'm like, "Have you written anything down?" And they're like, "No, it's just my head." And I'm like, "Write it down." But it feels like a scary commitment, even just writing something down, even if you're just going to keep it to yourself. But that's
Yeah. Well,
for
that's
me,
the first step.
I feel like
So-
I'm just kidding myself, like that it'll ever be done or in a state that anybody would want to read. And so, like,
I feel like with writing though, that's not
that's usually
right.
how your
And
first
I
step
know.
goes.
Yeah.
I'm
That's how it's
aware that
supposed to
that's
go.
a thing, but
Yeah.
I still
that'd be like not playing disc golf because you'll never compete.
But
No, it
that's-
would be
that's
like
where-
making videos of yourself playing disc golf and publishing them to the internet, even though
like-
you suck.
like making a podcast even though nobody listens.
Yeah.
That's not what we do.
Yeah.
The awkward silence is the best.
That was beautiful.
No.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny though.
But therein, you find the enjoyment of it. And
Right.
that's the
Right.
thing. The first crappy fantasy duology that I woke, that's where I uncovered my passion for writing. And guess
Yeah.
what? The next thing that I wrote, not so crappy. So
And honestly, the way that I rationalized, like, you know what, I should write this down, is that, like, stories aren't complete in my head. And, like, my memory sucks bad enough, I won't ever remember my own backstory to the story that I have. And so it's like, I need to write it down in order to, like, solidify it, like, make it concrete. And
do you know how many?
Legitimate.
Do you know how many pages of notes I had for this short story before I wrote it?
no.
30.
Wow.
Do you know how long the short story was?
Like 12 pages?
30 pages. You got to write the stuff down.
Wow,
Yeah,
that went
There's
quick.
stuff that I
That's
didn't.
what I said. I read
There's
it.
stuff that I didn't use. There's stuff that There's. Yeah.
I'm pretty notorious for like reading like a chapter at a time because I read slow.
Yeah.
And so it's painstaking at times if a book is tough to get into because I read so slow that like I'm spending hours developing a plot in my brain because you know what I mean, like reading. But with Courtney's, it's like I sat down, I was like, all right, she has it broken up into 4 sections. I don't know, 4 chapters.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll read the first chapter tonight and then I'll read the second one tomorrow. And then like an hour later,
couldn't put
she's
it
like,
down.
are you coming to bed? And I'm like, I'm finishing your book. Shut up.
Wow.
Well, yeah, no. So, like,
Thankfully, the shut up was in your head.
the day you sent it to me, I started on it and I made it probably like halfway through the first chapter, and I had something else I had to go do.
Yeah.
And so I put it down, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna come back to this later today. And I didn't get back to it until you texted me and were like, how you coming on the book? I was like, yep. And I sat down and I started reading again, and whenever I texted you, I finished it.
Yeah.
It was like, what, an hour
Sometimes
later?
you can't predict it. It comes in spurts. I mean, that's how it was for me writing it too.
Yeah.
It took me 6 months total for 13,000 words. Yeah, we don't like sharing like, oh, it's 30 pages because that is very, very relative to like how you
Page
format the
size,
page
yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
So it's 13,000 words, which is typical short story length. But yeah, still took me 6 months because I'm a pregnant mom right now. doing
Yeah,
ministry.
you're also
and
a podcast host
and
and-
so many
yeah.
weeks that I'm like, I have clocked
doing a
more
lot.
hours for this podcast than I have for writing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyways, but I'm proud of it. It's called
Yeah.
Golden
Yeah, it's
Hour.
good.
It'll be available on my website exclusively, CourtneySherlock.com.
Yeah, if
So
you
check it out.
listen to this podcast, I guess you haven't really pitch it to the listener, because I feel
Oh,
like
gosh.
Well, just quick, because I feel
Yeah.
like the average listener to this podcast, it is right up their alley, because it's
Yeah.
and let me do a 2-second pitch
ahead.
just from somebody who's read the full book as well as the short story. It's right along the lines of what you would be into. If you like this podcast and you listen to us regularly, you would be into this. It's very cryptid but truth oriented, in the sense of like a hypothetical. What could a cryptic like world? What could it look like? What are some hypotheticals? End time kind of vibes, but the biblical and inspirational backing of like what would you do in a situation like this? How would we as Christians, how should we, how would we respond? And it has such a different variance of different characters within it that just each one has their place and their role. And I feel like, even though the main character isn't somebody who I have a lot in common with, I still found myself sympathizing so much because of the things that she's gone through that I can sympathize with. But then there's other characters in the book that I'm like, dude, I feel like I'm just like this guy. And you just do such a good job of portraying that it just really sucks you into that world.
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, if you listen to this podcast, there's a 99% chance you're into that stuff, because that's what this podcast is about. And so 100%, if you're thinking like, I've tried.
If you enjoy reading the story in Revelation, but you wish that someone with creativity had written it instead of as the inspired word of God, you'd like this book.
If you, the message translation.
If you like that type of like storyline, like the combination of spiritual and like worldly,
practical, real,
like the world that you can see meeting, the spiritual realm. You like that kind of scenario. You like that kind of story. It's that, but like well written. And I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. Not because I don't know why. No, it was just better than I even would have thought. I expected it to be good. I didn't, I wasn't thinking you were like not going to be a good writer or anything, but I just didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did. I was like, this is really, really good. Like it exceeded my expectations. My expectations were like pretty high, and it exceeded it.
I
So,
very much valued your feedback when it came to like, there's a little bit of action. There's some, there's a couple physical altercations and stuff. One character has way more experience than the other when it comes to fighting. Conveyed. And so, and I'm writing from zero experience of fighting myself. Never really been in a physical altercation before, but I really valued your feedback and just, you had some really in-depth perspective on it too. Glad where you're like, this was realistic because this person did not know what they were doing, but still managed to, so that's good.
Yeah.
Very good. Very enjoyable.
Well, you asked me to do a 2-minute pitch, and then you
did a
talked
5
for 5 minutes.
Yeah, still pitch it.
I hesitate to call it dystopian. I think that's probably the closest category it fits into, though, but almost like dystopian supernatural. I don't know if the supernatural part's a little bit of a spoiler, but so this happens in a time of political upheaval, and the characters are trying to figure out, and you as the reader are trying to figure out, like, is this apocalyptic? Like, is this the apocalyptic, like, signs of the apocalypse and stuff? This is just political upheaval and downfall, and they were in internment camps and stuff, and then they escaped. The reason that they escaped was because there was a supernatural element that was all of a sudden introduced and just caused even further chaos. So picture you're in an internment camp, and then hopelessness abounds and stuff, and then all of a sudden, boom, like you're dealing with something else on a totally different level. And my interpretation on that is just the scripture, we battle not against flesh and blood, but against the spiritual principalities of this dark world. And some translations see the unseen principalities. Obviously we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. But and my perspective is, no matter what happens politically, no matter what happens socially, the breakdown of society, are you the type of Christian to forget the spiritual aspect of what's going on? Are you keeping that in mind when it seems like the battle is against people right before your eyes, even though it's the most intense stuff that you've ever like that you can conceive happening before your eyes? Can we keep a spiritual perspective in mind? And if you've read anything by Frank Peretti, like his This Present Darkness, there's a little bit of my interpretation of that sort of, there's different forces working in the background, but what if all of a sudden those forces are visible and working in the foreground too, on top of you're now in a broken world and you're just adjusting to everything. And it sounds like darkness upon darkness, but I feel like I keep it somewhat lighthearted, it's not just all misery. And so I hesitate to call it dystopian there because there's like the political upheaval. And I think there is something to learn from that. Yeah. I think the dystopian genre, the whole purpose of it is to show like, what if this happens in society? And it's supposed to teach us a lesson of like, don't go to this extreme. And so I do some of that, but I don't feel like it's really comparable to like Hunger Games or Divergent, where it's just one teenager against a corrupt government. That's not really the direction I'm going for. But
I like yours way better than those.
Oh,
it's the same, honestly.
Thank you.
I don't care for those.
For real, having read through the full first book at least, and then a couple chapters of her second book. Yeah, 100%. I would rather read it than either of those.
Well, thank you. Hopefully it's a little bit of a fresh perspective, because I don't know. I mean, guys, if you have some like, if you have ever read a dystopian book that has like some supernatural aspects to it, let me know. But I haven't really found anything that incorporates both of those at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and I told you the one element is something I'd never run into before in any book. The thing at the end of towards the end of the short story.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
And so this short story is, honestly, I could have gone a different direction. I could have gone with like two completely different characters who somehow find their way into the story, but I just had more backstory for my two main characters that I wanted to kind of unveil before we even get started. And for the couple people who have read my full book, it was like, hey, you get to go back and you get to see some more, like in the beginning, foreshadowing. So I actually went through and like color coded all of the foreshadowing and symbolism and everything that is referencing something else in my world, or something else that eventually has gotten written.
Yes, there's
oh
layers.
my gosh, it's just like a giant rainbow.
Nice. Because
I love doing that kind of stuff. I don't want it to just be a straight read through.
Right.
I want to reward you as a reader if you go back and you read it a second time, And so, but this is just the introduction to my two main characters, and you'll see them when my full book gets published.
Yeah. So if they're interested and they want to check out the short story, which you've getting ready to release.
Yes. And I don't have a date on that. It'll be exclusively on my website, CourtneySherlock.com.
Spell that out.
CourtneySherlock.com. We'll also plug it on socials, I think.
Yeah.
I hesitate to put an official release date on it, hopefully within the next couple weeks. Every time I put a release date on it, just have the deadline date in my head, it jumps because life.
Yeah. We should have books and
but
movies.
It's definitely going to be before my due date.
Before baby number 2 comes.
We should have a books and movies recommendation chat in the Discord.
Yeah.
Oh, I could do that. I'll set that up. Remind me.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Also follow me on social media. CourtneySherlock.author on Instagram is probably where I'm most active, but you could find me on Facebook too.
Yeah. If you're interacting with all of biblically accurate social media and Discord and all that other stuff, you want to follow Courtney as well, because it's, again, the things she posts are in the same vein as what you're following from this podcast. Anyway, it's just from a book perspective instead of a podcast.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to be dropping the short story and then taking a little social media hiatus.
Yeah. Fictional book. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, the two authors, I would feel like if you're familiar with Christian fiction, the two authors I feel like I would compare you the closest to would be Frank Peretti and Jack Kavanaugh.
A little bit, yeah.
But just because I feel like Jack Kavanaugh does Frank Peretti, I like Frank Peretti, I really do, but you can tell some of his books are getting a little bit dated in just like the way the technology portrays, because like, you know, we've come so far, especially
even
This
Jack
Present
Kavanaugh's,
Darkness, and even Jack Kavanaugh's are too. Yeah,
it's dated now.
But you know, This Present Darkness and all those, they're great stories. But I feel like with modern technology, some of the ways that he explains things kind of feels like it's from the 80s. You know, it's like and now I can appreciate that because of the fact that I appreciate that time period, and you know, if you've ever watched shows like Stranger Things and stuff, like you kind of get the datedness of it. But I feel like your books are almost just like a modern, like our era take on the same kind of battles, you know, but with different, but again, different perspectives.
So my characters do not have technology at their hands anymore.
Right. And so
barely,
but there's that just kind of modern feel to it. It almost as if it's like, I don't know, even like our modern politics, like I feel like it feels realistic.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like, dude, this could happen any day kind of story, which is makes it more funny. Interesting to me because it seems so realistic.
I was researching the Insurrection Act and what that would mean for the president to invoke the Insurrection Act and stuff. That was just a couple months before the whole January 6th stuff. And so, and then all of a sudden it's just like front and center, whatever you believe or don't believe about it. But I'm like, either way, I was just researching this stuff. So the book I wrote at the tail end of 2019, and I've just been trying to work on, you know, on building my platform as an author and stuff since. And then I had a kid, and now I'm having another one. Life gets busy, but it's still all going to come out. Whether I get picked up by a traditional publisher, whether I end up self-publishing, whatever. I feel like it needs to be out there. And then I have some ideas for another book after this trilogy that I'm currently about halfway done with, which is nothing like this. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I like to keep things interesting, I guess.
Yeah. You have more written than I have read in this trilogy, but I'll put it this way. I enjoyed the first book and the short story so much that anytime Courtney's like, hey, can I have you read a chapter? I'm like, actually, can I not? And then wait till the book's done because I want to read it. It's like selfishly as a consumer rather than as a husband who can give you input. And then I'm not available to give you input because it's selfish. And I just want to read it as a consumer because it's frankly like, how do you're going to include bias into it because you're my wife, but like it's a top 5 book all time for me. Having read it and trying my hardest to remove my bias, I still have it top 5 all the time because I'm like I said, I'm selfishly wanting to not get spoilers at your expense because I'm selfishly wanting to enjoy one of my favorite books without everything being spoiled.
That sounds so biased.
It does. It sounds horribly biased.
And that's why I'm like, I should probably just release this to like, you know, everyone because I'm just in this nice little safe bubble where just my friends and loved ones. I've entered my synopsis, my full synopsis of my book and the first 50 pages into Christian writing competitions, and I've made it to final rounds and stuff on it
multiple times
and gotten really good and also really critical feedback on it.
It's an award-winning.
It has been seen by people who don't know me personally,
right? And people who
they say it has potential. So I'm just trying to see how far that takes me. So
in nationally recognized competitions, it has made the finals.
The biggest Christian writing competition that my research has pulled up and showed me. So
I know you don't brag on yourself a whole lot, but that's something that that's a big deal in my opinion.
And then, but it's still not out yet. But
anyway, but I mean, once the short story's out,
it wasn't my intention to do a whole segment on this either. But
No, but
That's
I'm
okay.
your husband, and I decided, you know what? Let's plug this thing. We've been saying we were going to plug it once the podcast.
I've been saying
You don't have to make
meow.
it. You don't have to make it sound
Podcat.
like you
Meow, meow.
overrode me because I was totally on board with that.
No, because we've been saying that we would wait until the podcast got a little more established so that maybe we could get a little bit more traction in plugging it.
Oh yeah, well,
And I
also-
feel like the
We can do
podcast
that
is
again.
pretty established now. You know, we've got a lot of regular listeners and stuff. And so, yeah, I think now's a good time. And then when you release it, we'll probably plug it again. But so, yeah,
sounds good.
right now, pause the episode, go over to
CourtneySherlock.com.
Sign up for my newsletters, and then that'll give me your email address, and when it releases, I'll send you an email. Or
Boom.
if it has already released by the time you hear this and you go to my website, just you signing up, you will get a welcome email, and it will have that link in that welcome email. So make
so
sure and
if you-
check your inboxes. Yeah.
Booyah. All right. Booyah. Now I can't say booyah anymore without thinking of Bennett,
I
because
know.
he
He
gets
says
so
it.
hyped.
Booyah.
He just booyah 6:45.
6:45.
Can I tell that story really
Yeah.
quick? Okay, so Bennett, our son, he's been playing basketball, and he's got a little hoop in the living room, and I'm his hype man. Like I've receded my role of like being front and center in life, and like my existence now is my kids' hype man.
Nice.
And so he started doing this thing where he would ask what time it is, even though he has no real recollection of what time it is. He's like 2.5 years old. And so he's at, what time is it? And so I tell him the time. And this has gone on for a few weeks now. And then one day he's like, Dad, what time is it? And I was like, I don't know, dude, what time is it? And he goes, 6:45. And I pulled out my phone, and it was actually 6:45. And I was like, what? Did you just look at the clock? What? Like, I got all excited. Well, then I think he associated 6:45 as being an exciting time. And so then he's playing basketball, and he makes one. And then he's just like, yeah, booyah, 6:45. And we're just like, oh.
Sounds just like you, by the way.
He does. He's my mini me when it comes to celebrating. He's just like, booyah, 6:45.
I am now going to use that.
Use it. But then my brother and sister-in-law and their daughter are over here, and he's playing basketball, and he does that, and then we kind of like hype him up. But then the next shot he makes, I don't know what was up, but I was like, booyah, 6:45. And he looks at me and he's like, no, 6:10. And I was like, all right, 6:10. And then he's all, booyah.
That's the me in him that's coming through. The
Oh my
overly
gosh.
self-critical.
He
Not
just-
quite
that
6:45.
wasn't-
It's just 6:10.
Yeah, almost
Still
that. But no, calm down, father. Calm down. That was not a
Relax.
6:45 shot.
Relax.
That was a 6:10.
Is that a new rating scale? 6:45 is the
guess.
best, and then you just work back down to 6, and 6 o'clock is awful.
Yeah, it's like
6:10's fine.
it's like a SAT or whatever. I don't know. I never took SAT.
I didn't
Me
either.
either.
But yeah. Oh man. Yeah. And just from making the basket, you get 500. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, that's my son. He's so fun. It's been fun now that he's getting old enough to like do things like play basketball and stuff, because like, I don't know, his attention is getting long enough that like I can play with him.
Yeah.
Because before he'd be like, Dad, come play monster trucks. I'm like, all right. I get down on the floor, and he'd play monster trucks for like 10 seconds, and then he'd get distracted and go do something else. And I'm like, and I'm just sitting on the floor playing monster truck by myself. And that is
wrong with
fun.
that?
I was gonna say,
Yeah, I
that
was
is
gonna
fun.
say.
But it is more fun engaging with him for longer periods of time. And so,
Yeah. He
yeah.
still does that to me all the time. I'm like, I am 36 weeks pregnant. You just walk off after 10 seconds. I can't feel my legs. Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Anyways.
Shall we get into the
Covered
episode?
writing. We covered family. Yeah.
I kind of want to okay, just so you know, the whole intention of the episode was going to be kind of a catch-all, like shore up some of the episodes we've gone through a little bit, because there's so many just loose ends that don't have a full episode, that we just kind of wanted to just close all those loose ends today.
Well, and to just kind of decompress a little bit, because
it's been serious, and so this has been intentional. Us talking and just kind of sharing and having fun has been intentional, but I kind of want to leave the intro to start right now just for fun. And so somebody listening is like, wait, what? Is the episode over? Oh no, it's just starting? What? It just be confused. And I might do that.
Do it.
Done.
In the ancient days of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet heeding the Maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall? Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear the call?
All right, anyway. Dude, the kind of finishing up some of the MKUltra stuff, you know.
Do you want to do that section first, or you want me to go through my list of other experiments?
Let's do MKUltra
Okay.
shore up first, because I have something
Yep.
else I want to talk about after that. So it'd be good to go back and forth.
Okay, cool.
The MKUltra stuff, one thing that isn't, and it's kind of in the same, actually, I'll wait on that till right before I give it over to you. But anyway, been talking about MKUltra stuff quite a bit with people who have listened to the episodes, and it's crazy to me that this information has been readily available. Like I didn't have to go to a shady source. I didn't have to find a backdoor loophole. Like this is just available.
And known as fact. That's the thing that blew my mind. Because, okay, so my mom mentioned to me, she called me the day the second episode aired. And she was like, hey, did you watch this or listen to this Joe Rogan episode with Chase Hughes, who is like a top level known accredited researcher on like human behavior, the mind, and like manipulation of the mind. So like dude knows his stuff. And I was like, no. She's like, a lot of the stuff that you were saying he covered in this episode. Wow. And so I've been listening to that. I'm almost through it. I have like 20 minutes left, I think.
How long ago was that?
But
February?
And she said it aired very close to the same time. Like very close to the same time.
It aired February 25th.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's
it was like a week and a half. It was a week before the first episode. Less than a week before the first episode, and it was less than 2 weeks before the second episode aired.
Wow.
So it would have aired after the Manson family one, but then before we got into MKUltra?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Tanner, you've gotten comments from people too about how intuitively, how intuitive it was that we just released those episodes right then too, and then something else came out afterwards.
Yeah.
What was that?
My brain is not braining.
Was it
right
your
now.
brother? Was it the chaos thing?
Oh yeah,
that got
the
released?
Manson stuff. We talked about Manson in light of it being a cult.
Yes,
because we did a cult episode, but there was so many weird tie-ins that like I had finally found some like, because I was talking about how there's always been this itch in my brain about Manson for some reason that just it doesn't seem to make sense to me, and then I found this connection between alleged connection between Manson and MKUltra, and we kind of finished an episode of the cults on that, and there was like, dude, we should just do an episode on MKUltra. Been wanting to do this, and then so we did the MKUltra, and so it was like literally we were doing this stuff, and then all of a sudden, Chaos on Netflix is released last week or last Friday or a week ago Friday or whatever, and my brother listened to it, and he said the same thing as your mom with the Chase Hughes thing. He's like, I watched Chaos on Netflix, and it's weird. how perfectly it aligns with the stuff you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
But also, he's like, you could tell you did your research because the some of the stuff that he talked about was stuff that like you guys were talking about, but at the same time there was stuff that you were talking about that they didn't necessarily touch, and it's almost like they were like companion episodes. And so he was like, I was actually really impressed with how much research you guys did, and timing, it was just it's crazy the timing of this all.
Yeah.
And so like the thing that caught me so off guard was how like matter of fact Dr. Hughes was about like all of the MKUltra stuff, like talking about the stuff that you talked about, and not that I didn't trust what you said, but I was just like, this is just known, this is fact, this is public information that's out there, and we knew this, but nobody talks about it. What? It was mind-boggling. And he talked some about Manson too, and the fact that he was like almost certainly, dude, I'm
gonna have to listen to this episode. I know you did, and
I'm the same way.
Yeah,
it took me a couple weeks of my mom reminding me before I actually went and listened to it. But yeah, he talked about, and so like the thing that got her was, you remember how I mentioned like, what if Charles Manson was like MKUltra, and the reason that he acts so crazy, like post that, is that they like split off a personality, or like
they just left him in the
Chase. You said it's way easier to do that than you would think, and he like I think he believes that is the case. Like he kind of alluded to that if he didn't straight up say it. I don't remember if he actually straight up said it or not.
That's crazy.
But yeah, like that's a thing that they can do, and they've been able to do for a long time, and it's not hard, and like it's very plausible that that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. You know what?
Hate how often I come up with theories that I think are like kind of crazy, and they're not.
How would that relate to like multiple personality disorder or like hypnosis then too?
Yes,
because hypnosis is that like an alternate personality. You're just a lot more malleable, and
he talks about that too.
Does he?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
So, gosh.
See, I don't know if I'm going to have a lot more time listening to podcasts and stuff now, or a lot less.
Yeah.
But it's about to happen either way. So,
man, I've been wrestling with whether or not I wanted to share some of the stuff from this, and I think I'm going to, but I'm gonna to keep the source anonymous.
Okay.
At least for now.
You're gonna like unveil all of it right now?
Just briefly. Okay. So
not in depth.
I'll make sure and check your
Cliff Notes
because you do the thing where you're like I'm gonna keep it anonymous, and then you actually accidentally slip up and say a name.
Well, I'll just say family member. Mm-hmm. I was visiting with a family member about another family member, and this family member was like, "Hey, family member B ever hypnotize you?" And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Dude, yeah, that like all the time. That family member learned how to hypnotize from a scientist in the 70s or late 60s. It would have been the late 60s. This family member learned how to hypnotize from a scientist in California, in and around that area where Manson lived, learned how to hypnotize people and used to hypnotize me like all the time."
But didn't share all of that. You connected the whole Manson family thing afterwards.
Yeah. But in California,
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that'd have been like right at that same time and same location. And then we started piecing together other connections, and dude, I'm just going to leave the teaser on that just because I want to talk to a couple other family members and have conversations with them before I share all of the. It's nuts, though. It's insane. I know you can't probably feel this right from listening to me right now, but my brain, it's. I don't know what more conspiracy I can take. Like, it's like, not even conspiracy. Like, what more just like how connected this is to my, like.
Because it had been well known for years that this family member lived within close proximity of the Manson family ranch.
Yes. And this family member used to.
I had heard that since we started dating.
Yeah, and when you would ask this family member about it, anything related to it, they would almost disassociate and just kind of like, and move on. And then move on. And just full blown. And I never even associated it with the reaction that they gave as a disassociation until I was talking with this family member about it. And my brain was just like, A, B, that's disassociating. That's exactly what disassociating looks like.
And you were unrolling all of this to me. And before you even said that, I remember hearing about this family member, their reaction to that. And before you even said it, it was already in my brain. And I was like, okay. That sounds like just like...
New question.
I'm 95% convinced that this family member was...
We will never know because they are no longer alive.
And that's the thing. That's the part that
It's always
I just
going to be a
can't get over.
Fresh question.
It's just always going to be a part of your family lore.
Fresh question.
Oh my goodness.
When you say dissociate, do you mean this person was just dodging the question, or do you think maybe that person was also like split? Had you considered that?
Yeah, that's
what you mean.
we're saying.
Okay, that's what I was not sure. Now I'm understanding when you said dissociating, I didn't know if you meant like just not wanting to talk about that, like thinking about it for a moment, going nope, can't do it,
or
do you mean like
it's one or the other,
unconscious mental block that it just bounces off.
Yeah.
Don't know.
The sleeper agent quality
it's crazy.
Just will not allow
it's crazy
access.
to think about.
Right.
But the I think for me the question is, was this family member MKUltra'd?
Right, that's what I...
Or was this family member MKUltra-ing?
Right.
Because they learned how to hypnotize from a scientist in that same vicinity and successfully do it.
Right.
To the point where they could teach other people how to do this.
Right.
And...
how much do you want to unpack right now?
Right now, not as much. Maybe in a future episode, I want to dive into it. I kind of want to get permission from a few other family members first before I dive into it. I'm okay with it. I don't care. I'm good with it being out there, but I want to get some approval before I just dive in and release identities and stuff like that.
That says a lot about how heavy this is.
Yeah. And so, but...
It's nuts.
I used to think
there's also
that
the implication of drug involvement there too, because it's the Manson family and like that kind of stuff. So
I used to honestly think that one side of my family might have been involved in like the mob or something.
Oh, you're sharing that too.
like I used to think that. Well, I think I've shared this on the episode before.
Oh, have you? Yeah.
That just briefly and just kind of in a joking way, but like in a like I'm joking about it, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is actually very feasible that some members of my past family, like generations back, were involved in mafia. I don't know what you would call it. Scandinavian mob. I don't know if they have that, but like, I don't know.
Viking mob,
whatever. I don't know. But I always kind of, I know. I always kind of had something in my back of my mind that was like, it's plausible. Like, okay.
I always thought you were just trying to make your family sound cooler than it actually
I know.
was.
Phil,
like my family's relatively boring in comparison.
Right. But after hearing this, my brain is really trying to rationalize and that's the thing. I have so much information, I can't even fully rationalize what it means and what the implications are.
And I don't think you'll ever be able to, babe.
I know, and I won't. And I was talking to Phil when we were working out, and I was like, the part that I think gets me is that I have a family member who the odds are not zero.
Yeah.
That they were involved in some capacity in MKUltra. Yeah. The odds it's not zero. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's a lot higher than zero. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Phil, what are the odds you have a family member that was involved in MKUltra? Zero. It's pretty much zero. The fact that my answer is not zero is, I think, what gets me. Is that there is a possibility that this did actually affect my family.
Yeah.
And as you said, because of the circumstances, I will never get to know unless another family member. And if you are another family member and you happen to be listening to this podcast and reach out to me. Maybe not. Maybe don't. Pray about it. Because I don't know if I want to know.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to know for sure.
To perhaps ease your mind
like actual,
a tiny bit.
Like familial family and not like Manson family. Manson family don't reach out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're from the Manson family and you knew this family member and you're following my podcast, chances are you probably already know all of these details.
Let's have you on for an episode.
Let's do this. Let's have it down. I would gladly have it.
Be like conspiracy theory, like Springfield, like Jerry Springfield. finger.
For real.
How's this all tying?
Just like the smackdown with MKUltra.
To potentially ease your mind a little bit, if this family member was MKUltra, I don't think you ever would have been able to find out anyway, unless somebody else
I've tried.
knew it,
Yeah.
because
They don't.
I mean, if that wall was there, you're not getting through it.
Well, the one possibility I feel like I could have is if I could get my hands on the UCLA files of Dr. Jolly West. Because he would have been the leading person overseeing this area anyway.
Literally something that we just talked about on the pod. It's crazy.
Yeah, but because of like HIPAA and stuff like that, I don't feel like names would be released on that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the deadline is on names being released on something like that.
Right.
But it would have to be the university files. But that actually plays into, and that's honestly, I'm good with, that's where I'm at on sharing with that if you guys had any questions. But that actually brings me into, one of the things about MKUltra, I think that is the most frustrating is that they did it and they designed it in a way knowing what they were doing was bad enough that they didn't want it to all be underneath the CIA directly. Right. They created a system of loopholes and slush funds and secondary accounts so that they could fund the money, and in a way that it didn't bring accountability back to them until it did. And when it did, they had already deleted most of everything anyway. And so it's just so hard to find records. And honestly, I feel like when they probably deleted those records, and I imagine in the aftermath of MKUltra, it's possible they were doing even worse stuff, but they had destroyed everything because of the fallout from MKUltra. Mm-hmm. And so now I feel like our government, if they are doing bad things, and we'll talk about this after Phil goes, but if our government is doing bad things, it's going to be categorized in a way that can't show any accountability towards them.
Right.
Yeah.
And pause on that thought, and we'll come back to it. Okay. I want you to share a couple things.
Okay, so last week I kind of alluded to a bunch of other questionably ethical experiments, or not even really questionably, just totally unethical experiments in the history.
The question being, how could you do this?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, not even questionably unethical.
So I'll just go through it, and there's more than what I've got here, but I've got probably, 12, 15 different ones from the U.S. from like the 1880s onward. So under the category of medical experiments, I separated these into medical and radioactive. There's other categories as well, but these two were the ones that most of them fell under. So as far as medical experiments, in the United States, at Sonoma State Hospital from 1955 to 1960, this place was kind of a permanent drop-off for disabled kids. You'll find this is a recurring theme. They did lots of painful experimentation, all without adult consent, including spinal taps. A lot of these kids had cerebral palsy. Every kid with cerebral palsy that died in those 5 years, they had their brain removed and studied without parental consent. Every single one. Hawaii, there was a hospital for lepers. This is in the 1880s. They injected 6 girls who were under the age of 12 with syphilis.
Oh my gosh.
1895, Henry Heyman, Heiman, there were 2 mentally disabled boys who were intentionally infected with gonorrhea for experimentation. In the Philippines, U.S. Army doctors infected prisoners, 5 direct infections of bubonic plague, 29 infections of beriberi, which, if you know what that is, you're... that one's bad. 4 of them died as a result of those. In 1906, at Harvard, Richard Strong infected 24 Filipino prisoners with live cholera vaccines, which was contaminated with bubonic plague, without informed consent. All of them got sick and 13 of them died. In 1908... St. Vincent Orphanage in Philadelphia, researchers there infected dozens of children with tuberculin, resulted in permanent blindness in some of the kids, and eye inflammation and lesions in others. In the report for that, they referred to the children as materials used.
Oh my gosh.
In 1941, at the University of Michigan, there was an intentional infection of influenza by nasal spray in mental institutions.
Oh, great.
Yeah. 1950, at the University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Joseph Stokes infected 200 female prisoners with viral hepatitis. From the 1950s up to 1972 at Willowbrook State School at Staten Island, they gave mentally disabled children viral hepatitis, trying to research to find a vaccine. Parents were promised enrollment in exchange for consent to give the kids what they claimed were vaccines. So that's fun. In 1952, at the Ohio State Penitentiary, Chester Southam of the Sloan Kettering Institute injected live cancer cells into prisoners, and also at Sloan Kettering, 300 healthy females were injected with live cancer cells. Doctors later stated they knew it might cause cancer.
Wow.
In 1979, the Church of Scientology, of all people, claimed that the CIA had dropped whooping cough bacteria around Tampa, Florida. So that was
Weird.
that was interesting. I thought that was funny that that would be the people that would make that claim. Right. Report that. So on to the radioactive stuff. In 1949, the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission released iodine-131 and xenon-133 into the atmosphere near Hanford site in Washington and contaminated over 500,000 acres, including 3 towns. From 1945 to 1947, there were 18 people injected with plutonium as part of the Manhattan Project. Injected with plutonium. Let that settle for a second. And then the last one I've got, in 1945, there was a misdiagnosed cancer patient who they, as quote-unquote treatment, injected with plutonium-238 and 239 without informed consent. He did not have cancer, and he was never told that he didn't have cancer. And then once he passed away, eventually, in the late 70s, the Argonne National Laboratory acquired his remains without the consent of his surviving relatives. Gosh. So that's my list of, not my incomplete list of insanely unethical experimentation in the United States.
Well, dude, okay. So to even just like, if hearing that list of all of that doesn't help you to realize how different the world was back then, as far as just like how nonchalantly they did a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was talking to my brother a little bit, and he was talking to me about, they used to have this thing. They were called orphan trains. Have you ever heard of those?
I don't.
Orphan trains.
I feel like I've heard of that. But
So they used to have this train that went from New York to San Francisco, back and just kind of back and forth, where they would put unclaimed orphans, and when people wanted to sell their kids, they would put them on this orphan train, and this train would stop at every town along the way. And then at the place it stopped, there would be bidding, and you could bid and purchase kids from this train. And so if you wanted to sell your kids,
So child trafficking, literally
government funded, basically. And this was back in the day. You know, this wasn't like last year. This is back in the day. But yeah, they would just sell it, and you could just go and buy kids to raise. And it just makes you wonder. And even thinking as like, I have a relative who was purchased from their biological parents. Kind of crazy. Like I literally have family members who were purchased. Just,
wow.
Hey,
So
you want to buy my kids?
there was
Yeah. And then now they're in our family. This is regular. But the orphan trains ran for a long time. And so, yeah, they would stop. Every stop along the way, they would just sell kids. Yeah, it's nuts just thinking like what the world was like, you know, just like, and not even, that kind of stuff. But because of a lot of this, like the bad stuff, you know, and I kind of alluded to it before Phil started sharing, but nowadays, because of the history of all this stuff, I don't believe for a second that our government stopped experimenting.
yeah.
I just think that they cover their tracks better now. Right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah.
I think that's a conspiracy because that's not provable. And unfortunately, it's not provable. You know what I mean? It's just not provable. However, I was listening to a couple podcast episodes, and so I started looking into this guy a little bit. His name is Mike Benz. He's been on the main two that I would recommend listening to him. I'm not going to do a deep dive on this because I am not qualified to do a deep dive on this. And there's enough information out there on this that Mike Benz, and to his credit, he has been researching this for years. And he has done enough research that I would do it an injustice trying to deep dive it on my own because of the nature of the timing of it. Mike Benz has been researching this for years. So keep that in mind. Long before our president, who is in office right now, was in president. Long before.
In president.
Even the first time?
So long, way before.
Okay.
He was president.
So many years.
Present.
Many years.
Present.
It's so long time ago, like decade plus. So Mike Benz, the two episodes that I would recommend the most to go listen to hear the full breakdown of his, and he brings documents. He's not just sharing hypotheticals. He's bringing the actual tangible documentation. Go listen to Mike Benz on Joe Rogan and on the Sean Ryan podcast. And both of those hosts had him on before all of this started to break. And he was sharing the exact same thing as he's sharing now that it's breaking. So this is the point in the show where I have to say everything on this podcast is hypothetical. This is for fun. This is just a comedy podcast. Ha ha, we are laughing. Ha ha ha. Okay.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Allegedly, Mike Benz has been researching USAID.
Oh.
Here we go.
Okay. So do you know what USAID stands for?
United States of America.
Identification.
I don't know.
I
Internal
don't.
destruction. I don't know.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
So
Internal
it stands
destruction.
it stands for the U.S. Agency for International Development.
Okay.
International.
Not aid is in the sense of we're going to
United
help these
States
guys
aid.
out.
I assumed that.
It means aid is in Agency for International Development. And what Mike Benz basically lays out, and I don't even think that this is even, in my mind, the documents that this stuff is available to us. I looked this stuff up. This is available to us. We can look this up on the the web. Well, now you have to go into the Wayback Machine and go look at it because it was available to us. But ever since all of the scandal broke on it, now all of a sudden it's no longer on their website and you have to go to the Wayback Machine. So what Mike Benz says is that when something is, and this is his quote, when something is too dirty for the CIA, it goes through USAID. USAID used to be across the street. So USAID, the headquarters was across the street from CIA. When the CIA, and this is Mike Benz, I'm gonna give him credit on this. I'm not saying this. What he said was when CIA agents wanted to do something that they didn't want to come back on the CIA, or they didn't want the president to know what was going on. And now USAID, it seems like, and they keep presenting it as though that USAID is this relatively new organization.
Yeah.
Bro, it's 50 years old. It's been around, and historically it has been used. So when you start looking things up, they're providing condoms in East Africa. That's not condoms they're providing.
Yeah.
They're providing for overthrowing governments. So, fun fact, the USAID, and basically what he kind of goes into, and he's explaining this, is our government has to have an organization like this. Calm down,
Ow.
sir. Just kidding. Our government has to have an organization like this. At some level, we have to have it because every country on earth has something like this where, if
it's a deeper level of diplomacy and being an ambassador.
When diplomacy doesn't work.
At some level, okay, for example, and he brings up the pencil thing. Apparently there's a country in Africa that they own all of the world's graphite. And if all of a sudden a new president was getting ready to be elected who wanted to just shut down the graphite mines for no real reason, and was just nope, no graphite. Well, then so USAID then goes in and promotes the person who is pro-graphite so that we elect the pro-graphite president and he continues to keep the mines open. And so basically it's in order to help our country have good deals with other countries, at some level that's going to have to exist. Now, every other country is doing this. So Russia, China, they're doing this in America. They're trying to affect who we elect. But the problem is that everybody in America, we always just blame the party that we don't like as being pro-Russian or pro-China. And it's like they were saying that Biden was pro-Russia and pro-China, and then now Trump is pro-Russia and pro-China. And it's like they calm down. Let's actually think through the propaganda on this a little bit. Well, so and this is a matter of fact that in Romania there is a candidate. NATO is trying to build the biggest NATO military base in existence in East Romania, and the plans have already been approved. It's happening. Well, there's a conservative presidential nominee for Romania who was leading in the polls and was he was being elected. He was going to be elected, but he was against NATO building this base. Well, and USAID and NATO work very close hand in hand together, pretty much two peas of the pod. And so then USAID went in and began to publish propaganda in Romania, basically blaming this conservative candidate on being pro-Russian and all these other things. And this is USAID funded this. And this is, they did this. It's in there's proof of this. At least according to Mike Benz and the proof that he provided on his site. And I'm not taking credit for any of this. This is not me. This is Mike Benz providing the credit. Also USAID on their actual website. So you can use the Wayback Machine to find this on your own.
I'm just picturing some sniper crosshair drifting towards you and you just pushing the barrel back. No, Mike Benz. No.
This is not me. This is not me. But for real though, I'm trying to be careful because even Mike Benz, Rogan would ask him something and Mike Benz would be like, I'm going to be careful to not answer that.
Right. Yeah.
Let's go over here because he's even trying to be careful.
That's kind of what Elon has said too, right?
And Elon was visibly scared.
Will eliminate me.
Well, and just think practically about this, okay? So their budget was $44 billion and it seems like every ounce of it was to go towards stuff like this. That's it makes no sense. And we've been saying the whole time, we're why would they do this? And so our brains are they're just wasting money.
Right.
Bro,
that money's going somewhere.
You think our government is quote unquote wasting $44 billion? No. It was going to something. What was it going to? And now we've joked at and we've alleged that, there is, secretive programs. Well, Mike Benz has been saying since long before USAID got audited by Doge, he's been saying forever that USAID was basically the blob. That it was just this slush fund of money that our government would use. So the CIA, whoever wanted it, whenever they wanted to use something that was, they wanted to circumnavigate the CIA, they did something. When it was too dirty for the CIA, they would use USAID. So my thought process is, okay, so it came into existence a little after MKUltra. So what if USAID was one of the ways in which this is alleged, this is conspiracy, this is me making up just a hypothetical, not true. This is fake. What if USAID was just kind of a way for them to create another layer of plausible deniability from the CIA?
Yeah.
In doing experiments and things that would overthrow governments and stuff like that, so that they could say, oh no, the American CIA didn't do this. This was an independent person who we paid to distribute condoms in Congo.
They were all former doctors, right?
Right.
Didn't we just hear that? Former doctors, former government officials.
Yeah. Well, and the USAID was responsible, and this is documented. This is back on Mike Benz, not Tanner. Mike Benz said that that USAID was responsible for overthrowing al-Assad in Syria, and for overthrowing and then establishing the current government in the Democratic Republic of Congo as well.
Woof.
And now we see that those guys are anti-Christian.
Yeah.
And so our government had a hand in some of the stuff that's going on over there now. Wow. And so the CIA got in a lot of trouble in the 70s and 60s about just like assassinating people. Mm-hmm. And so instead they started doing this. And this is what Mike Benz is basically saying, that they started using funds. Now, and he said, so he goes, USAID is $44 billion. And that's their black hole of that.
That's your tax money, by the way.
Yeah.
I can't build a new deck.
And again, and so what, yeah, Mike Benz said.
Because we're overthrowing Romanian governments.
But Mike Benz, but the thing is, some of that level, it does help Americans because it gives us cheaper lumber, cheaper, whatever. Like, if we install a president who will give America better prices on this, then, but he said the biggest problem was that USAID became weaponized against Americans in the last 10 years. I'll let your brain.
I've been paying taxes.
I'll let your brain run with that, and you can go and listen to the full episode of Mike Benz because you're not going to believe me on this anyway.
You know what just popped into my head with that, though?
What's up?
Like supposedly, quote unquote, like paid protesters and stuff.
I will let you listen to Mike Benz share exactly that.
I haven't listened to any of that, but that just is what came to my head.
Did USAID sponsor January 6th?
USAID pays for the Soros, for George Soros prosecutors. I'll let you run with that, if you know what that means. If you don't, man, I wish I could live in the same world as you live in now. Having done this research, my brain, I can't, it's the world I live in
sucks.
In the last, is this 30? Episode 30?
Yes, I like it.
In the last 30 weeks, unfortunately, the world I live in is no longer the same world as it was before I started researching for this podcast.
Which
because
I warned you was
everything, I know, but at some level, I'm grateful because I no longer get so worked up about like
little things.
Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Like I more am just like, I wish I could live in the world you live in, and that sounds so condescending, but sometimes, but I would say as a Christian, if you really, and this is going back to like opinion and stuff, as a Christian, this is the world you should already live in. Yeah. We are told we do not battle against flesh and blood. We battle against the principalities and the dark rulers of this world.
I think someone recorded that this episode.
You did.
Okay.
Reminder number 2. It's important.
And as a Christian, how many Christians in this country, we'll just talk about America.
Leaning forward, guys.
Yeah. In just America, how many Christians do you think wasted more than 100 hours in the last 2 years arguing about Donald Trump? For him or against him?
Not even just politics in general.
Donald Trump.
Just Donald Trump.
Not politics.
100 hours? Yeah.
Donald Trump.
Most people.
Your battle is not against Donald Trump. You wasted that time. Whether you were for him or against him, you wasted that time. Because Donald Trump is neither your savior and he is neither the person you're battling against because he is flesh and blood. And your battle is not against Donald Trump. And he is not your savior. And so the time that we waste in politics, imagine if you spent that 100 hours praying for your neighbor. Imagine if you spent
with your neighbor.
That 100 hours, engaging with your neighbor about things that they're passionate about.
Conversation other than politics.
Oh, and I'm not even trying to personally convict people because
I think
these conversations are going to come up.
We've gone on this train before anyways.
We have, and I don't need to go into that. But having done all this research, my brain is like, it's the only way that the only way that USAID exists in that capacity is if the spiritual darkness and evil is real. Yeah. The only way that the things that Phil talked about, those experiments that were done on kids, the only way that an orphan trains exists in in America is if evil exists, and evil is not flesh and blood. It is demonic. Yeah. And if demons exist, then God exists. If demons exist, then Jesus exists. If demons exist, then the Christian is right in my mind.
Yeah.
And I saw this quote.
It's all fixed to work against us, too.
Yeah, I saw this.
To get something from us, but to work against us, too.
Right. So. And I saw this quote, and it said, the one thing I saw this video that was talking about, it was like, this is just for funsies, but it was kind of cool. It was like, name another religion that worships somebody who all the other religions try to claim. Jesus, the Muslims try to claim him as a
Yeah.
virgin-born prophet. Hindus try to claim him as an enlightened one. Buddhists try to claim him as somebody who reached the pinnacle, the thing that they're trying to, the nirvana, that reached the true enlightenment. Do other religions claim Muhammad? Do other religions claim Buddha? Do other religions claim, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kind of intriguing, right? Why are we all trying to claim this one person if he's not God? And I think today that the average person who is anti-Christian isn't anti-Jesus. They're anti-Christians, not anti-Jesus. And I think if we as Christians could focus on Jesus the way that we focused on Donald Trump for the last 2 years, I think people would stop having as many problems with Christians. Well, no, they still wouldn't, because we talked about in previous episodes, they hate you because they hate me.
Hate us. Yeah.
But the funny thing is, like, nobody really hates Jesus anymore. They just hate the Christians.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's the excuse.
That's the excuse. That is the excuse. But anyway, back to USAID, just to kind of close things up for the day, man. But yeah, with USAID, again, I want you to go and listen to Mike Benz because he puts the documentation. But he was talking about that it became focused on Americans, and that was never allowed before. And so the propaganda machine, and basically the USAID is this very real propaganda and like hit piece trying to jail people kind of thing. And it became focused on Americans and American politics, and it never was in the past. Yeah. And his reason, and he says that's the reason why. So like, if you go to war with somebody, you present yourself with a shock and awe campaign. You take out the leader. You know what I mean? Like we just recently, I think our government just took out the leader of Pumice, the HAMAS, just took out the leader of that, as well as the leader of ISIS.
Thank you for saying our government and just not one specific.
Yeah, no, our military, whoever
military.
was. Now our president did green light it. Yeah, he gave the green light to do it, but it was our military that did it. But they took out those leaders. Well, that's what you do. When you're trying to establish dominance, you take out the leader so that the people come up afterwards, listen to you when you say, stop. We'll take you out as well. Like the age-old story of Trump when he basically, one of the leaders was being a little disgruntled. Right. And so he sent him a picture of his house and coordinates or something like that. Like you that's kind of what you do. Well, his theory is the reason why they went after USAID first wasn't actually just because it was the one that, was the most disobedient or anything like that. His theory is the reason they took after USAID was because in the same concept, if you take out the ringleader of the situation, everybody else goes, oh, okay. All right. And so his theory is that's why he took out, that's why he did USAID first, is because it's
the Game of Thrones theory.
It's the darkest slush fund, yeah.
And that's why everyone's losing their
And that's why they're flipping
minds.
out. There were CIA agents that were threatening to disclose confidential information to our adversary or our enemies.
Adversaries is the right
adversaries. To our adversaries if they were audited. And it's like, what are you hiding? Mm-hmm. And so then he goes on to say, and he said, now think about this, and this is bringing kind of full circle on our show a little bit on this topic. He goes, so the dark hole that is USAID is $44 billion. Now think about how many $trillion are quote unquote unaccounted for in the Pentagon budget. Mm-hmm. Pentagon, remember when we did a full episode, we talked about this. It was trillions of dollars. And their black hole is trillions of dollars. And now if they're able to overthrow governments and overthrow countries and leaders in somewhat established nations like Romania with USAID, imagine what our Pentagon budget has been doing. Mm-hmm. Aliens are, dude, I'm 100% convinced that all of this stuff, all of the aliens, all of this stuff, the UFOs, the orbs, all of that junk, the UAPs, all that junk. I think it is just slush fund money that is top secret because they're not talking about it. And with that, I just want to remind you. Demons.
Does that account for
all evil and principalities?
Like crippling nation like national debt too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's
why
why
I
I
can't,
wondered that.
that's why I
Often,
can't build a deck.
Where does that even come from?
That's why I
I
have the money
think
for-
the
yeah,
national
for health
debt
stuff.
is a fear tactic in order to keep us in line, and as Americans, because Americans are the main way. I feel like this is just this is Tanner theory. This is fake. It's not real news. I think that our government, not our government, leaders within our government, leaders within our Pentagon, leaders within USAID, leaders within the CIA have been entertaining demons long enough that they're in full communication with the demonic realm, demonic demons.
Now you're sounding like Jack Kavanaugh
Yeah, a little bit. It's.
because he goes.
I don't know how
way
you
into
can
the
get that
political
evil.
side.
Yeah, I don't know how you can get that evil.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, I think that the experiments point to that too. Like the length of time that that has all been going on. I feel like America is still kind of under the delusion that we're the good guys because we did a good thing by stopping the Nazgul. And that's kind of it. Like that. Yeah. And it's like, no, who's we? We as in Americans? Okay, I can get behind that. America?
Right. I love the.
I don't know that we're the good guys, man.
I love that we're like, we need to stop being involved in other countries' wars.
Right.
And then they're like, all right, we'll stop being involved. And it's like, you side with the Russians. You're not involved enough.
Right.
And that's part of the fight is
Yeah.
if you're not involved, you're inconsiderate and you have no compassion.
Negligent, you have a blind eye.
If you're over involved, you're just a dictator. And the happy medium is USAID.
Oh my gosh.
But
I don't know about the happy medium, but that's the middle ground.
Let the real professionals handle it.
That's called being on the fence.
I think all this, man, I think it's our circus. I mentioned it last week. I think politics have become our circus. I think they've become our Coliseum.
Roman arena.
Our Roman arena.
Yeah, Roman Coliseum.
And, but
That's where I'm at.
to end, I guess if you guys have anything else to talk about that, I want to encourage you, go listen to it for yourself, because normally I will try to, I deep dove on it and I did my research and I did everything I normally would do to present it as a full episode. Because I've only been researching it post Donald Trump, post them auditing it, there's a level of, I'm only focused on this because of the fact that it's been audited. Mike Benz has podcast episodes that date back years before this. And so for your own credit, I want you to go listen to it. If you're interested in this and you don't want to just take me at my word for it, actually go listen to it. And that's why I'm not doing a full deep dive on this.
The Chase Hughes episode of Joe Rogan is also really good to listen to too. If you have any doubts about anything we've said as far as mind control, MKUltra, stuff like that ought to solidify that for you a little bit.
And go watch Chaos on Netflix if you don't feel like listening to the podcast of that.
I have a hold on the book, audiobook from Libby. So I'm looking forward to when that comes available so I can listen to it.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And outside of that, the last thing I want to leave you guys with is never forget that a year ago, something happened in Florida that demanded full-scale, multiple agency,
Police
hundreds,
response.
if not thousands of SWAT, police, the military was there, response, and we still don't know what happened.
Of course we do. It was teenagers with fireworks.
It was a couple teenagers with
and
fireworks.
sticks.
But they also have classified documents that you can try to get from Freedom of Information, and they'll respond with that.
I had one final thing I forgot I was going to mention from the Chase Hughes Joe Rogan episode. Chase is pretty much of an expert, like I said, in that all the stuff that we've talked about. And he said there was I think 10 or 12 signs that you're in a psyop, but there's one that is every single time. If this is true, it's a psyop. He said, if people must be silenced, it's a psyop.
Yeah.
100% of the 100% of the time.
I've heard that.
That doesn't mean it's a hh level psyop or a conspiracy level deal, but it's a psyop.
But it's still a psyop.
It's a psyop.
It's so based. That's almost like an ethical statement,
Well, it's
if you
to me, that my mom kind of posed a question to me the other day. She's like, if someone asks you why you believe that Jesus was the Son of God and the Messiah, what would you say? And I think my greatest logical explanation is the amount of resistance that Christianity gets, because nobody else has been received this level of hate and attempts to discredit and just the general resistance to it,
Maybe the
refusal
Jews.
to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the Jews, but
they are
Christianity
doing the
would be
same thing.
technically, but
yeah.
Christianity is technically an extension of
Yeah.
that religion in that sense. But yes, I agree with you.
Like, to me, that's like one of the most compelling arguments is no
But
other
that's-
religion
And
gets
Jews aren't
that treatment.
silenced that way
Well,
too.
yeah. Yeah.
They're
I don't feel
convicted and they're
They're hated
for
for sure.
yeah, but yeah,
But
Yeah.
Judaism
'Cause,
gets
like-
credit.
Right.
Judaism gets credit. Christianity gets hate.
yeah.
That is not the same
like
thing.
if you were for free speech and just everyone has the right to communicate their beliefs, then if you were opposed to that and you're like, shh, stop talking about this, that is a fear reaction. There's no way around that. It's a fear reaction. It's a control reaction.
Yes.
It's a power
Yeah.
move reaction.
There-
So you are not for free speech because then you would be for people being able to make up their minds on their own. I do not want to stifle the voices of people who believe other religions.
right.
Right.
Share everything.
Yeah.
Share everything that you
The
believe.
truth is the truth.
I'll share everything
Yeah.
that I believe.
Yeah.
And then people can line them up side by side and decide what they believe.
Right. The
That's
truth is
it.
more powerful
That's it.
than that. Yeah.
I have no motivation to
Right.
stifle other people's voices.
Well, and
You know?
if you've read if you haven't read 1984,
Read
you should read 1984.
Yeah.
immediately.
But the next step past free speech is free thought. And
yes.
in Europe, there was a guy who his spouse terminated her own pregnancy and didn't tell the husband. And the husband eventually found out, and he went to the clinic that she had done this at. And he, in his own brain, was praying for just the whole situation and just wanted to just closure. You know what I mean? In my mind, if I'm thinking through his steps, it's closure. And the facts of it is he was there silently, not protesting, not holding up a sign, not doing anything, silently praying. And he was arrested, and he was arrested for praying at an abortion clinic. He was arrested for what he was thinking.
Yeah.
And
Literally, they mentioned thought crimes in 1984. That's
Yeah.
why you mentioned 1984.
and Europe is NATO, and it's
Yeah.
quote unquote one of our biggest allies. But I'm just going to say this: a country that arrests citizens for what they're thinking, you are not an ally. In my mind, you are no longer an ally because you've delved into that next step of, well, if they're thinking this, well, they're Christian. Well, therefore, we can't. Oh, okay. We have to arrest all Christians now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You start going on that path. And in my mind, once you start arresting people for what they're thinking, you're not an ally of America anymore, in my mind. You cannot be an ally if you're arresting people for what they're thinking. I don't care where they're thinking it. You can't arrest people for what they're thinking. And
it's so backwards.
it's 1984, dude.
It's so backwards and so funny because then you are demanding perfection and absolute perfect self-control from people down, not even just like their impulses and stuff, but their actual thoughts. If they have a thought, then it's
Yeah.
boom, it's sin.
You're
and it's
alluding-
like
yeah.
the Bible talks about that, but like God gives us more grace than that government does at
Well.
that point. You know, you submit yourself to me and you're still going to sin. You're like, even like hating your brother in your heart is committing murder against him. He says it that way to make a point in order to direct our habits and the way we think towards the way that, you know, Jesus would have lived, towards the godly way. But there's never the requirement of like, you know, if you can't fix yourself by this date and you still have this thought, then boom, you know.
But they're also going a step further than that, then, in saying that praying is a sin. Then
Yeah.
is a jailable sin. And there's the case of the lady who was I think it's in Germany, no, Sweden. I can't remember the country of origin. One of those Europe, but she was SA'd by a group of Muslims, men, and in the way their laws are written, she went out and was protesting and saying like these men, like they got off with less than they deserved and all this other stuff. She then went to jail for hate crimes and ended up serving a longer sentence than the 10 men who SA'd her. And I'm using SA, it's a very light term for what they did. And that's what's going on in Europe. In my mind, you're not an ally anymore. And I cannot be mad. And then this kind of goes back to politics just briefly. I can't be mad at JD Vance going and basically telling these people, you're not our ally because you do this. You cannot be our ally if you do this. And anybody who is against that and is like, well, it's their free country. Yeah, they can be a free country, but they cannot be an ally of ours if they are prosecuting this, because things like in 1984, that's how the Antichrist, that's how they get you. And we're talking about cult episodes. The way that cults work and prevent people from getting out of them is they make them afraid, and they separate family members by making family members turn on family members and afraid to talk to family members about wanting to get out and stuff like that. And that's kind of what the Antichrist is going to do with countries. He's going to get countries afraid of turning on countries and wanting to back out. And eventually everybody's just going to be on board, even when they're not on board, because everybody's on board. And then eventually from there rolls out all the other things. And so anyway, that's theology mixed with politics, but
theolitics,
dark principalities.
Apologies.
But anyway, all right.
We apologize.
With that, no more. All right.
GG's.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Don't forget to like, comment, share. Do us a favor. Share this with a friend that you think would listen, that would enjoy our show. It would go a long ways. And then
join the Discord.
Yeah, join the Discord. Check out Courtney's website. Subscribe. Do those things.
And Instagram. Thank you, guys. We love you. And as always, stay your BA best. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hey.
Ancient days of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet heeding the Maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall? Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear the call?